Dark theme. Let me mute this. Close out of Destiny. There we go. What the fuck is this?
Now, hundreds of thousands of people have protested against the
DW is a German public blog. Then why the fuck is it in
Russian
English?
invasion in cities around the world. Here in Berlin, a huge rally took place at the landmark Brandenburg Gate. There were big demonstrations.
What fucking, like, this is what I don't get, for one. Like, what are these protests in other countries going to actually accomplish? Like, what is a bunch of German people getting together in the middle of a German city going to do about Russia invading Ukraine? I don't really think the Russians are going to be like, oh my God, dude, do you guys see how many people are protesting in Germany right now? I think we're going to call it off. I don't know. It's just kind of odd to me. I never really understood that. I don't really think you all are making a big impact with that one. You could probably spend your time doing something a little bit better. But hey, who am I to judge? So, let's see. So let's see. Here we go. This. Mark Cerny is giving the PS5 a sexy graphical upgrade. So this is one of those things where it's like... like, this is the same shit they said last generation and nothing came from it. Like, fanboys always hype this type of shit up and nothing ever really comes from it. So I'm kind of surprised Rich is kind of falling for this. It's just a marketing gimmick. What you doing, bud? Hey, buddy. What you doing? Bro, he's like snorting at me. What's up, bud? You good? Yeah, he's just staring at me and like snorting, like... I don't know if you could hear that, but yeah. He's just like snorting over there. Brit with the 2. Oh, by the way, Roman and Byzantine Empire, the same thing. So yeah, the Byzantine Empire is just the Eastern Roman Empire, because at one point one of the emperors split the empire in half. And yeah, it's literally the same shit. It's basically just the Eastern and Western Roman Empire. So the Byzantines are the Eastern Empire, and the Western is the Roman Empire. And the Byzantines continued, I think, for like close to 1,000 years after the Roman Empire fell. So, yeah, it's the same thing, basically. And DJ Aftershock with the 2. Look, Griffin, I'm posting a Ukrainian flag. I'm making a difference. That's right, man. Russia BTFO'd.
Mark Cerny is going to increase the graphical power, graphics power, graphics power, graphics power, more power, better performance, better graphics, graphical power, graphical power, graphical power, Mark Cerny. Let's get into the news.
Skip it up and that up. So one of the biggest features that has been touted for the 9th generation of consoles is ray tracing, which is graphics calculations that make light react naturally to physical objects. That's as 5th grade of a description as I could give you. But ray tracing is also very expensive and is very demanding on hardware, and that's why you see games like Dying Light, if you want to have ray tracing be enabled on the PS5 or Xbox Series X, it only runs at 1080p 30 FPS.
Yet we're supposed to believe, like, this isn't about this video, but all the dumb fucks that were like, yes, the PlayStation 5 will be as powerful as a 2080 Ti. And it's like, bro, they can't even run Dying Light with ray tracing on at 1080p 60. It has to run at 1080p 30. Bruh. Hate to fucking see it.
It's also because the game is not optimized well, but it's my point being is that ray tracing is a very hardware demanding feature. Well, it looks like Sony is actually looking to focus on the PlayStation 5's ray tracing capabilities and optimize them and improve them. This is according to a new patent that was filed earlier this past week. This comes from thegamer.com. I'll have a link below in the description. I'll read this to you, then we'll discuss. A user on Twitter, Onion00048, drew attention to the patent filing earlier this week. According to a tweet from them, Sony Interactive Entertainment has filed a patent that suggests the format holder is looking to optimize its ray tracing effects on the PlayStation 5. They proceeded to offer more information on what the patent means for the company and who filed it. The official papers for the patent showed that it was filed by Mark Cerny, an engineer and architect for the PlayStation 5. He is also the creator of the PS4 launch title Knack.
Knack, bro. I remember when that was actually being hyped up. I bought Knack and I finished it in like 4 hours. Literally one of the easiest games I have ever played in my life.
He was also the architect of the PlayStation 4 as well. That's a little extra little tidbit of info there. And this is from the same Twitter user here. Sony Interactive Entertainment has filed a new patent that suggests the format holder is looking to optimize its ray tracing effects. The patent was filed by PS5 architect and Knack creator Mark Cerny, and it mentions system and method for accelerated ray tracing with asynchronous operation and ray transformation. And then you could actually look right there, and it has some diagrams that were written up, which I am not a hardware or software engineer, so this is derp to me. But needless to say, this is still fairly exciting news if Sony has found a way to optimize ray tracing on the PlayStation 5, because it is a very expensive feature. Like I brought up before, sometimes it can't be as fully utilized as it is on a gaming PC, like Dying Light 2, for example. Again, there's more ray tracing and lighting effects on the PC than there is on the PS5 or Series X. Maybe now with more optimized ray tracing features, and they optimize how ray tracing works on the PlayStation 5, you might be able to have more graphical niceties. Or maybe you could get, dare I say, Dying Light 2 to run at 4K 60, or maybe even 1440p 60 FPS with ray tracing put on. You know, those are things I want to see. There's no reason in 2022, say put the Series S aside, that we should be getting games that are AAA games still running at native 1080p resolutions. That's just, look, I think the consoles are plenty powerful. And
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, is ray tracing is kind of a gimmick. It's still, like, ray tracing really is not that big of a deal. I've turned it on, I've turned it off, never really noticed that big of a fucking difference, personally. But, hey, I don't know. But it just shows you these consoles are not as powerful as everybody was hyping them up to be.
But just something needs to be done to optimize the game engines to actually utilize the hardware properly.
Yeah, and I think the difference is, too, as somebody pointed out, AMD ray tracing is terrible, which, yeah, dude, NVIDIA is way further ahead, 100%, because once you pair, like, you can pair ray tracing and DLSS on NVIDIA cards, and it, like, makes a massive fucking difference, too. But, yeah, NVIDIA's, like, just much more advanced with all of that stuff. 100%. Their GPUs are much more accustomed to, or not accustomed, but like, fuck, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. But anyway, NVIDIA built their chips with ray tracing in mind. AMD kind of did it as an afterthought. There we go. Got it.
Properly, because 1080p 30 FPS to have ray tracing on the PS5 or Series X for Dying Light 2 is just laughable and unacceptable. So if what Mark Cerny, the patent that he files here, makes ray tracing more efficient and makes it much less expensive on the hardware, I'm all for it. And I'm sure whatever Sony has in this patent may bleed out to the rest of the industry, and then we'll see better ray tracing and more efficient ray tracing in game engines for the PC and the Series X. So it's a win for everybody. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.
Nvidia is more influential in some ways. Dude, Nvidia like curb stomps AMD, plain and simple. Nvidia cards outperform AMD in almost every single way imaginable. Nvidia is like the market leader for a reason. So let's see. Steam Deck review. So which one do y'all want to watch? Whose review should we watch for the Steam Deck? Who should we watch? Nvidia's overrated? I don't think so, man. Find me an AMD card that can outperform Nvidia cards. Doesn't exist. It's easier to get AMD cards? Yeah, because nobody wants them. And no, that's not true at all. Dude, the 3090 alone has sold more cards than the entire 6000 series of AMD. That's an actual fact. Like, there's more 3090s out there than the entire 6000 series for AMD. Linus? Okay, we'll watch that. Fuck it.
Our full embargo has lifted, and in just 6 days, the Steam Deck will ship to end users in a state that can only be described as unfinished, which puts me in an awkward position as a reviewer.
Ugh.
On the one hand,
The fuck are subtitles on, bro?
I want to be optimistic. The
Not
kind of
deaf.
zeal with which Valve is tackling this project is like nothing I've ever witnessed in all my time covering technology. They're on a mission to change the industry come hell or high water, and it's no secret that I'm rooting for them. Every major player in the console gaming space, I'm looking at you, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, has made enough blatantly anti-consumer moves over the years that I can't help but cheer for a disruptor. On the other hand, I can't review the hypothetical Steam Deck of tomorrow, one with Windows drivers, and improved UI, and better game compatibility. If it's shipping as is, I have to evaluate it as is, and I'm going to be doing it a little differently than you might expect. See, this thing has the capability to be treated like a science fair project. You can tweak it, break it, reformat it, start over, and Valve is embracing that. Good guy Valve. But most people aren't going to do any of that. So today, I'm going to be focusing on the out-of-box console experience. So ready or not, Valve, here I come.
This video is brought to you by dbrand, the most trustworthy criminals on the internet. Over the past few weeks, we've been testing out dbrand screen protectors for the Steam Deck. As it turns out, the thickness of ordinary tempered glass inhibits touch sensitivity. Don't believe everything you see on Amazon. dbrand's tempered glass screen protectors for the Steam Deck are guaranteed to be super precise and work on your display.
Running countless benchmarks on the Steam Deck. But really the bottom line is this. At its starting price of $400 US, the hardware in the Steam Deck is literally impossible. The internals of this thing put it in the same performance class as Ultrabooks that cost twice or even up to 3 times as much. And if it's a title in Steam's game library, the deck is almost certainly capable of running it at 60 FPS if you're willing to turn down the details. And that colossal back catalog is both its greatest strength and its biggest question mark. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit though. Firing up the Steam Deck cold takes just a few seconds. Now let's get logged into a Steam account, you'll need to be online for this obviously, and take a tour of the interface. At launch, all the basics are pretty well covered, and I was surprised at how self-explanatory just about every menu was. Home here contains your recently launched games, news, and recommended picks from your library based on the tastes of gamers with a similar profile. One surprisingly jarring feature for me on this page was the Friends tab. I mean, it's a pretty simple feed of games that your friends are playing and recent events. You can see mine is empty because I don't have any friends. And you can chat with them to play together or view a game that you don't already own in the store. That's just pretty normal stuff, right? But what it's...
Yo, I gotta ask, does anybody actually use the friend features on Steam? Like, bro, I cannot remember the last fucking time I've sent somebody a Steam message. Like, dead ass. I don't fucking know. I've never really used the friends features on Steam. So that tab will be completely fucking dead to me.
It serves to highlight is the Steam Deck's online first design, and I couldn't help feeling, looking at this, like the Switch is suddenly this relic of a different gaming era. The rest of the main menu is accessed using the Steam button. You can hold it, by the way, for a comprehensive list of useful shortcuts or chords. Then from here, you can use any of the 4 methods of navigation: joystick, D-pad, touchpad, or touch screen to arrive at your destination. And wherever that destination is, there's a pretty good chance that you're gonna find some, let's call them growing pains. All right then, let's pretend I'm a brand new customer who doesn't own any Steam games, and I head straight
So what if I don't have friends, dude? You don't have to rub it in.
for the store. No, not that store, although they do have excellent water bottles and mouse pads there. To Valve's credit, this has already improved a lot. In fact, it was part of a big, long list of improvements that Valve sent me just minutes before we sat down to film this video. But fortunately, I caught this one already. I had this whole thing written up about how the closest thing to a Steam Deck verified page in the store was the SteamOS/Linux heading under the Categories tab that frankly reminds me of the reasons that Nintendo introduced their Seal of Quality program back in the 80s. Like, honestly, Climb Fall Human Guys? Really? I wonder if it's a Fall Guys ripoff. One of the new and trending games was like, Elfwives Cheat to Ride My Meat.
Hell yeah. I'm gonna pick that shit up.
Fortunately, that mess has been papered over with a proper Great On Deck header that allows you to browse titles that are verified to run flawlessly by category, popularity, ratings, discounts, all the usual fare. And this is hugely important because for those who haven't been closely following Steam Deck news, it runs a modified version of Arch Linux called SteamOS. And game compatibility relies either on the developer to build a Linux native version of their game or this super cool compatibility layer called Proton or Steam Play. So this is great, but there's a bit of a navigation problem here, Valve. Where on earth is the comprehensive list of Deck verified games? You've got this wonderful page on your website outlining the 4 different tiers of compatibility: verified, playable with tweaks or workarounds, unsupported, and unknown, but nowhere on the official site, or more importantly, in the store, can I just browse a comprehensive list of every game that works on the deck. And whatever the reason is for this obfuscation, I don't care. It's a terrible user experience. My first Google hit for a workaround was this list on digital trends from a few days ago.
I mean, I guess this wouldn't really matter, because isn't there like the little icon now in the Steam store? I'm pretty sure. Like, hold on, let's check. I think there's like an icon now in Steam. Maybe I'm wrong, but I saw some shit on Twitter where there was like a little icon or something. Maybe it only pops up when you're in like big picture mode. I don't know, but there was like a little icon with like the deck logo. I don't know, maybe it won't pop up here and it'll show up when you actually get the Steam Deck, but I saw something where it was like a list of games in the store and there was like a little icon right here that would show up next to the platforms and say like, yeah, it's deck compatible. I don't know. I remember seeing something about that. Not sure if that'll be only in big picture mode or in the SteamOS. I have no fucking clue. But I know they're doing something along those lines to make sure like the verified games are marked.
Which led me down a rabbit hole to steamdeckverified.avery.cafe, a totally credible sounding site that scrapes the SteamDB database for verified status flags and then makes them easily searchable. Big props to the community maintainers of both of these projects, but my gratitude towards them doesn't change the fact that neither of them should be necessary if Valve was on top of these things. I'm sure they're going to get this sorted out in time, but considering that Valve's core competency is supposedly selling games through a digital storefront, it just struck me as a little ironic that I encountered everything from slow page loading to titles not highlighting as I was scrolling, making it so that I had to navigate out of the store and come back to it and figure out where I left off, to this confusing compatibility error message that I got while trying to download the demo of a Steam Deck verified game. I mean, given the importance of selling games to balance out Valve's aggressive hardware pricing, I hope that the plan is to get this in order as soon as possible. Or maybe the plan is just to allow me to buy additional copies of games that I already
What does Steam do better than, say, the Xbox Store or PlayStation Store? Well, the number one thing I can tell you right now is you can buy Steam keys from sites other than Steam, which is like the number one fucking biggest perk, in my opinion, over like something like an Xbox Store or something like that, is the fact that like I can go on a site like Green Man Gaming, CD Keys, or something like that, and I can pick up a game for like $40 on release date and redeem it on Steam and get all the features and everything. Whereas like if I want to buy a game from Microsoft, I have to buy an Xbox code. And that Xbox code is going to be the same price everywhere I fucking buy it. Doesn't matter where I'm getting it from. Not to mention Steam just has like, I don't know, they have a much better refund policy. Just everything about it's better. Like the fucking Xbox Store on PC is awful. Like it's really fucking bad. I don't know. Steam just has everything you need built in. I like the tracking it has for like your playtime, everything. I don't know. It's just easy. It's very like Steam has been ironed out for like 2 decades almost at this point, and it's just such a good experience overall, basically. I don't know. But like Xbox on PC is really bad. Like using the Windows Store is like a form of fucking torture.
own. While I'm at it, by the way, one more gripe is that while I don't mind the store reloading if I haven't looked at it in a while, if I'm quickly switching back and forth between my library, it would be really nice if it remembered what page I was on. It's really frustrating. Heading into the library, things take a turn for the better. I installed a 1 terabyte micro SD card and found that while I didn't always get a prompt for which storage device I wanted to use, it is super simple to transfer games to the internal SSD and vice versa. And depending on the game, I saw download speeds over Wi-Fi of anywhere from 30 to 40 megabytes per second and closer to 60 to 70 with spikes to 100 using a USB Type-C dongle. That's those Zen 2 cores going to work. Love it. And the game library, inspired by Steam Big Picture.
Shit, dude, I wish the fucking Switch had download speeds that fast. It's like literally waiting for a 1980s computer to fucking load a web page when you're downloading some shit on a fucking Switch. The Switch's network card is terrible.
Is delightful, mostly. In here, we'll find a mishmash of games that I bought years ago, ones that I picked up more recently to enjoy on the deck, and pretty much every other unknown status game that I tried was a big fat negatory. The good news is that according to the third-party resources, the number of verified games has been absolutely skyrocketing, including many games that I would actually want to play while I wait for some of my favorites to arrive. And, more good news, every verified game I tried, with the exception of Fez, which I had some crashing issues with, was a smooth enough experience that I would simply never even know that I wasn't on Windows. Smoother, actually, in some cases.
Let's talk about some really cool stuff the Steam Deck does better than a Windows handheld. Say I'm on the bus gaming away and boom, we're at my stop. Look at that sleep speed. Now I'm walking down the street ready to continue and bam. Xbox? Sure, but I'd like to see a Windows PC do that. How about sleep battery drain? In our rough estimation, it appears that the Steam Deck loses about 10% of battery every 24 hours in sleep. It's not quite Apple level.
That's really fucking good. Whoa. Yo, that's actually really good. 10% in 24 hours? Yeah, that's really in sleep mode, not even just turned off, just in sleep. That's pretty fucking nice, honestly.
I mean, what is? But it's miles better than most Windows laptops. Okay, so now I'm in my game here, right? I'm just farming some wild boars or something, and I want to hang out in voice chat without going through the hassle of
I
installing
feel like the Switch doesn't even do that well.
Discord in desktop mode or whatever. Steam menu, friends, voice chat, and man, let me put it this way. I accidentally gave Linus a call in the middle of the night while playing around with this menu, and we were both blown away by the progress Valve has made with audio compression in recent years. And adding icing to the cake, he described the mic quality on the Steam Deck as mid-tier, which is high praise indeed for a microphone on a $400 handheld that's a couple of feet from your face.
Here's a quick sample of the Steam Deck's microphone through Steam Voice Chat. And here's a quick recording of the Steam Deck's microphone through Discord.
The one challenge we ran into was during intense scenes, the game's
Doesn't
audio
sound
could break
bad.
through Valve's attempts at canceling it out. But the solution to this was as simple as either boosting the call volume or lowering the game volume, resulting in a really excellent social experience. All without Nintendo Gold, Xbox Gold, PS whatever. Thank you very much, Valve.
Honestly though, as a friendless person, it's the quick access menu over here, these 3 dots, that impresses me the most. Whether you're in a menu or mid-game, the quick settings menu is full of all kinds of goodies.
Yo, I just want to know if Lost Ark plays on this shit, because I actually would play the fuck out of that in handheld.
You got your notifications. Yeah, nothing really that interesting there. A way to more quickly access your friends. And you've got your quick settings. In here, you can adjust screen brightness, and you will want to do it this way. Not a huge fan of Valve's auto brightness. I think it needs some work. You can adjust your rumble and haptics, which, by the way, are still unamazing because they don't have dedicated hardware for it, but both of them are greatly improved through updates since our hardware review. And you can prioritize your connected controllers, toggle your wireless radios, all that good stuff. Bluetooth audio, by the way, for those who are bitter about years of Nintendo apathy, was completely painless with both my LG Tone-Free FP8s and my AirPods Pros, and I didn't try much else. Then there's the boring tab, the battery tab that... Sorry, did I say boring? I meant the opposite of that. This is the coolest one, and it is time for the rest of the console industry to sit up and take notes. That right there is an integrated performance monitor based on Mango HUD. And it's time for a bit of a side story. You could argue that Microsoft has good coverage of the consumer spectrum, with Windows for enthusiasts and tinkerers, and Xbox OS for normie gamers. But what they don't do a good job of is bridging this gap. And when I contacted them asking for a temperature readout for the Xbox Series X, for example, they acted like I was from the moon. An FPS counter? Why would you want that? More like, what are you trying to hide? This is in stark contrast to Valve's approach here, which appears to be, well, I don't know, man. I mean, it's your thermal diode. I assume you want the value it's outputting, right? Damn straight! I mean, why pretend that a performance issue isn't real, creating confusion among consumers when you could just give the enthusiasts the tools that they need to diagnose it for you, and better yet, probably solve. I mean, it's beyond the scope of the video today, but the Fox is a wizard when it comes to tuning FPS, thermal, and power limits in these handhelds to optimize performance and battery life to the point where he was actually able to beat Valve's estimates. So if you want to learn more about why this tab is so cool, you can go check out his shiz, all right? The dumbest part of this traditional console opacity is that enthusiast-grade diagnostics are such an obviously powerful business tool. And when Steam Deck 2 comes out, it's going to be trivially simple for gamers to compare performance, which is a powerful upsell mechanism that it is baffling to me that everybody else doesn't want to leverage. So this is the proof that you can build something for the hardcores under the hood, and then also keep it.
I mean, it is pretty amazing that like these games can run on a fucking handheld. Like, I know people were like hyping up the Switch, like, oh my god, dude, they got Doom 2016 running on a handheld. It's like literally almost every single game on Steam now runs on a handheld, which is really fucking crazy. I don't know, this device is just really cool. I've been excited for it ever since it got announced, and I'm glad that it's like almost time to actually get it, because I can't wait to pick this shit up. Oski Woski with the 2, can't wait for my deck to come in. Yeah, I'm really kind of pissed I didn't get first wave, but hopefully either this week or next week I get it, because I really want to fucking try this thing out.
That's not big.
Oh wait, fuck, wrong one.
Yeah, I'm a gamer.
7 inches? That's pretty big.
And McKinsey with the 2, gaming for Windows Live, games won't work still. Yeah, rip. Yeah, games with Windows Live was fucking stupid. But Microsoft typically does not know how the fuck to make gaming applications for PC. Even now, like, the Xbox launcher is kind of... it's kind of mid. But, yeah, it is what it is, man. Oski Woski with the 2, Lost Ark doesn't work because of the anti-cheat. Hopefully they fix that, because Valve's kind of been going through all those individually and trying to get them to be compatible. So, I would assume, because Lost Ark's big enough. Oh, listen. Yo, did y'all hear that? I was gonna try to turn it up, but my mic software crashed. Y'all heard that, right? Wasn't that fucking weird? Dude, just make some weird fucking noises. Yo, he is passed out right now. Oh my god. Hold up. I'll show you guys. Alright, I'll send that picture to myself. Dude, he's like just zonked right now.
Clean for the normies that never want to look at any of that stuff. I actually get a lot of BMW vibes, to be honest. Great hardware, fantastic out-of-box experience, definitely some quirks, but also a ton of thought that goes into weird edge cases. For example, I ran an update, and while the deck was rebooting, I went out of network range. So it got a little confused for a few seconds when it turned back on. Then it kind of went, oh, okay, I guess we don't have network. Just dumped me in the profile selection screen. I clicked on it and boom, I was on the homepage. I mean, Valve.
Here he is. He's just zonked right now, dude. Just chilling on the floor. But yeah, he's getting big. But yeah, that's him, like, in real time. He's just chilling over there. But yeah, he makes a lot of noises when he sleeps. It's kind of weird. Like last night, I had him sleeping up on my bed, and he started like making those type of noises, and I woke up like, what the fuck? And then of course, because I woke up, he woke up, and then he started wanting to jump around and play and shit. I'm like, hell no, bro. It's too late for this shit. Damn, he's big. He is getting big. He's only like, he's 40 pounds now. So, boy's getting big.
Valve has had a much better offline experience than many other platforms for years, and that work is paying off in spades here. One of the biggest challenges that they face with the Steam Deck is handling cloud saves with a portable device. So to address this, they introduced a technology that allows seamless saving across devices, and that sounds great for the future. Gotta run to the can? Take your deck with you. All done? Pick up where you left off on your desktop. For the moment though, things are a little more kludgy. To demonstrate, let's abruptly suspend a game session here. The deck goes to sleep, we go to launch that same game on desktop, and oops, we get a prompt warning us that we could lose progress if we continue. Waking the deck, closing the game, and putting it back to sleep resolves the issue, but it's not particularly elegant for the moment. And there are still quite a few rough edges. Here are a couple of navigation annoyances, for example. The keyboard doesn't roll over horizontally. Oh, and my precious quick access menu. This one drives me absolutely crazy. As you are scrolling through the submenus here, okay, if you go all the way down, it doesn't go into the next parent menu, obviously, because that would be stupid. But if you go up, it just carries all the way through. Some consistency would be nice here. But I'm sure Valve is going to see this and fix everything that I've talked about before any customer actually gets the device in their hands, which leads us perfectly into a huge discussion point.
We've almost completely glossed over some massive elephants in the room. We've hardly even touched on game compatibility, especially with third-party launchers and anti-cheat schemes, and that's for good reason. We just don't feel like it should be our focus today. It's not perfect today, no doubt. Much of both of our Steam libraries are either entirely incompatible or have issues, but the Steam Deck needs to be evaluated for what it is, not what we wish it could be. It's a console, which means it's compatible with the games it's compatible with, but unlike any other...
Yeah, I am the type to write off a 3090, or get a 3090 Ti, because I can write that shit off on my taxes. Fuck yeah. If I can get a 3090 Ti, I'm definitely going to buy one, then I'll sell my 3090. And then I won't have to pay taxes on $2,000 worth of income. So, you're goddamn right. I would upgrade.
Console in history, it's fluid. Using a compatibility tool like Lutris means it's entirely conceivable that a gamer could flip over to desktop mode on the Steam Deck and fire up Anno 1800.
Yo, I just realized I haven't fucking eaten anything today. Shit. Unfucking lucky.
Using the touchpads. But unless they're willing to put in the work and maybe tolerate some inconveniences, like the fact that
I don't know why the fuck I just thought about food, but yeah, I've literally had nothing to eat today. Fuck.
multiplayer doesn't seem to work at all, despite a gold rating on ProtonDB, it's just not going to be the kind of experience that most gamers are after. Which is why we feel that most people should probably look at Valve's verified list, or somebody else's, and make their own decision. It's an easy one for us. We're in. If you're on the fence but have a gaming PC, fear not, because for games that don't yet run natively or through Proton, Steam Remote Play on the Deck is probably the best, most responsive game streaming setup I've ever used. It's straight up outstanding, and we don't say that a lot. But we'll also be looking at some of the more hacky use cases in more detail in the future once Valve's had a little bit more time to not complete the Steam Deck. Ah yes, we're back to that. What might surprise you about our It's Incomplete take is that Valve agrees. Obviously, they've been hard at work refining the experience in the lead up to the consumer launch. Nobody wants to embarrass themselves, but they also have no intention whatsoever of stopping here. It's frustrating because it means consumers are expected to take whatever Valve offers today and trust that someday it'll live up to the vision, but it's also encouraging because it means that, looking at it like a console, once we've worked through the generous 400 some odd game launch titles, there's hope that it's going to be better for years to come. And honestly,
and hasn't Valve already said like they're planning on making more of these, like future iterations as well? Like, I'm pretty sure.
I'm hopeful.
And with that in mind, I want to immerse myself in the Steam Deck experience, and I'm going to be switching to it as my only computer for a month, starting today. During that time, I hope to explore the desktop experience, browser games. Apparently, controller support is coming to a Chrome update, which sounds super cool. Third-party game stores. GOG, for example, has outright said we're not going to support it, but maybe there could be workarounds for non-validated games.
Listen to that one, dude. GOG. Fucking the wonderful pro-consumer people at CD Projekt Red. They're not going to support it because, you know, they're for the gamers, guys. They're a great company.
I want to look at the Windows experience. Actually, Windows might end up being a separate video. I don't know about that. So, it's incomplete, but I'm not complaining. I mean, I spent my whole life as a gamer asking for someone to take the guardrails off my console and let me do whatever I want with it, understanding that there might be some hiccups along the way. And someone finally did it. So if you're like me, you can see that Valve took the rougher path here, but damn it, that's our path, and I couldn't be happier. So keep your pre-orders, ladies and gentlemen, because you're going to absolutely love this thing. Like you'll love our sponsor, Linode. This video is sponsored by Linode, a powerful Linux-based...
So there we go. A positive review. Let's see. Does IGN have a review? Review in progress. Let's see.
Right now, trying to review the Steam Deck is like hitting a moving target. Valve's ambitious handheld gaming PC is coming in so hot that when I first booted up a couple of weeks ago was very different from the experience I have with it today. And that experience will almost certainly be very different in another few days as we get some very important software updates that, among other things, will include a graphics driver for Windows 11.
Uh-oh, dude. This is going to trigger the fucking fanboys.
That driver will let us test out how it runs games outside.
See, that's wild, though. They got a fucking game like God of War on a handheld. Like, that's really cool. I don't know. This is just such a cool little device. Alice games for fun with the 2? Taco Bell? No, probably not. I'll just get something tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll order Chick-fil-A. That shit would probably be fire. Some chicken minis. That's some good shit. And Jesus Wagon with the 5. Throughout this whole stream, I finally beat the Crucible Knight. Can I get a gaming? Yeah, sure, man.
Gaming.
And Peaches with the 2, that's definitely going to hurt the back. I know, man. I'm going to have to go ahead and get my fucking back brace ready and on order. Just in case, man. That 1 pound Steam Deck is literally going to put me in the fucking, like, wheelchair at some point.
side of the preloaded Steam OS and work around some of the inherent limitations of playing on a Linux-based system. So this review is going to be in progress for a little bit before I can put a final score on it. But what I can tell you right now is that when the stars align, this chunky handheld can do some impressive things when it comes to realizing the promise of letting you take your Steam library anywhere. It just currently comes with a number of caveats and headaches that brought my hype down a few.
Why does it sound like he's using a fucking laptop, like, built-in mic instead of the mic in front of him? I think he has the wrong mic turned on. Sounds like he's using, like, a fucking webcam mic.
Notches. As you've already seen from the memes, this thing is pretty massive. It is 11.7 inches from end to end, which is more than 2 inches longer than a Switch. And it
Oh my god, dude. 2 inches longer? That's why my wife left me, dude. Because someone else was 2 inches longer. So I guess it is a big deal. Fuck.
at 1.5 pounds.
Oh my god, 1.5 pounds.
It is quite a bit heavier.
Yeah, get ready, man. Hope you guys have been doing your fucking bicep curls, because holy shit, bro, 1.5 pounds. Hope you can handle all that gaming.
Size difference is enough that going back to my Switch after using the Steam Deck exclusively for a few days makes the Switch feel like a micro console. It may be a handheld.
Halo Infinite has less player numbers. Wait, for real? Nah. That's got to be cap. 1,800? What's Halo? Yeah, Halo Infinite's got more people. Yo, 5,000, bro. That's not good. But yeah. Halo MCC does not have more people, though. I took the bait. Oski with the 2. Hell no, 2077 not on Steam Deck. Lord Gabe, please help. It should be. No, it should work fine. Just the GOG version won't work. But Cyberpunk, I'm pretty sure, has already been confirmed to run on the Steam Deck, I think. I think somebody's already tested that out. I know Witcher 3 does.
But there is no way you're going to fit this in a pocket. Still, the Steam Deck isn't uncomfortable to hold.
Bro, who the fuck is putting their Nintendo Switch in their pocket? Like, bro, if you're walking around with a fucking Switch in your pocket, like, what the fuck?
And it's not like my arms get tired from holding it for a couple of hours. This one here is the high-end 512 gigabyte version with 457.9 gigabytes of usable space, which runs for $649 and comes with an anti-glare screen. It also comes in a
Dude, like, look at those graphics on this. Like, honest, that's just, like, fucking crazy for a handheld. Like, this thing is wild.
256 gigabyte and the hilariously small 64 gigabyte sizes for $529 and $399 respectively. And for that tiny one, you'll definitely need to make use of the micro SD slot to expand the storage, unless you only want to use this expensive machine to play tiny indie games. You don't. The Steam Deck's 7-inch LCD touchscreen runs at 1200 by 800 at 60 Hz, and it looks really good. That said, the OLED on the latest Nintendo Switch model has spoiled me on handheld screens, and the Steam Deck doesn't live up to that level of vibrance and clarity. But unless you're going from one to the other, it's not bad at all. The outer shell might not be the sexiest looking tech ever, but it has a subtle texture to it, somewhat rougher than the texture of an Xbox controller, and it feels good to the touch. The grips on either side bulge out at the edges, making it much more comfortable to hold in my adult-sized hands than a Nintendo Switch. The main buttons...
Yeah, I was about to say, dude, like, I'm actually kind of happier that the grip is wider, because I literally will get, like, a fucking cramp holding the Switch, like, in the handheld mode, which is how I primarily play it. Like, the Switch is so fucking uncomfortable to hold. I don't know. So I actually like the fact that you have more real estate to actually put your hands on versus the tiny little fucking Joy-Cons.
Feel like little pieces of flawlessly smooth, hard candy with a nice travel and just enough resistance. I'm not quite as into the D-pad, which feels well built, but it's a little mushier than I like. And the way it's positioned to the left of the thumbstick...
Bro, who the fuck actually uses a D... Yo, I'm gonna be honest. I can't remember the last time I've ever fucking touched a D-pad on a controller, other than to like call in a fucking kill streak. And God, that's about it, man. That's about fucking it.
Threw me off a little. The thumbsticks, though, they're my favorite feature of the Steam Deck. They're perfectly smooth without feeling loose or sloppy, and they revert back to center with a satisfying snappiness. The surface is touch sensitive, so it knows when you've got a thumb on one without needing to depress anything. I didn't have any issues with them, but knowing that they're technically user replaceable makes me sleep a little easier, considering they're built right into the Steam Deck itself and not detachable like the Switch's Joy-Cons. Directly below each thumbstick is a trackpad with a subtle but slick haptic feedback that feels like moving a mouse across my desk. It feels good for desktop applications and navigating the Steam menus, and it'll feel very familiar to anyone who used the Steam controller. Between these and the touchscreen, the Steam Deck has most of its bases covered when it comes to inputs. And like just about everything else with the Steam Deck, you can turn them on or off on a per game basis, which is good because sometimes I accidentally hit them and moved the camera when I didn't want to. I'm looking at you, Dark Souls.
The back of the Steam Deck has 4 programmable buttons, similar.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised people use a D-pad for fighting games, because don't people with like the fighting sticks or whatever, those have analog sticks on them. So I always thought analog sticks were better for fighting games. It's the reason why like the fight sticks have like an actual stick and not a D-pad, but I don't know, man. I've never really used D-pads.
Similar to the button placement you find on the Xbox Elite or other high-end controllers. They're absolutely my least favorite inputs of the bunch. The placement is difficult for me to grasp with my larger than normal hands, and I just don't like the way that they feel. The response is soft and the clickiness is weak. Because of this, I actually didn't use them for anything, which is great since they're entirely optional.
The USB-C port is located at the top of the Steam Deck, near the power button. It's kind of a bummer there's only one, because that means you're probably going to want a powered USB-C hub to connect things like Ethernet, HDMI out, external storage, or any wired peripherals, while you can still plug it into power. The volume up and down buttons are on the left side, and sitting between them is the Steam Deck's primary cooling vent. It pumps out a continuous stream of heat, because most of the time, the fans are running at their highest setting. Look, it's not so loud you can't hear the pretty nice pair of forward-facing speakers over it, but I find it's impossible to ignore the high-pitched whine. The user interface on the Steam Deck is a modified version of the Steam desktop app you're used to, especially if you've ever used the big picture mode. Navigation is fairly easy, although things as simple as locating your library aren't very intuitive at first. Where things get tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really play fighting games, but I have never once used like a D-pad in a fighting game ever. I don't like D-pads. I think they're like, ever since the fucking DS was no longer relevant, I've never used a fucking probably D-pad in my life. I've always just used thumbsticks. It's way more comfortable. I don't know. Like, just I'm holding my Xbox controller right now, and just even reaching down to the D-pad, like thinking, yeah, I'd be controlling, like, I don't know. I wouldn't want to fucking do it, personally.
Tricky is when you're in a game. The Steam button on the left and the menu button on the right both bring up overlays, with the menu button having notifications, performance options, and quick settings. The Steam button brings up a more detailed list of submenus, including home, library, power options, and more detailed settings. This is on top of the menus in games brought up with the pause and select buttons that you're probably used to using. The confusing part for me came when I wanted to turn off the gyro feature in Sekiro. I couldn't remember, is that an in-game setting or a Steam setting? So I went through all the possibilities. It turns out, oh, it's none of the above. It's actually accessed through the game menu that complements the settings menu when you hit the Steam button. Yeah, it's as clear as mud. One advantage consoles always had over PCs is that developers know exactly what hardware and software you're running and can tune their games precisely to run well on that. Whereas PCs, boom, all over the place. But since every Steam Deck has the same specs except for storage space, Valve has been able to create a new badge for games that work, quote, great on Steam Deck. While it's only a few...
Bruh. Death Stranding. Who knows, man? Maybe I'll try out Death Stranding on the Steam Deck. Because I think do I own it? I don't know if I do or not. This is the point of my Steam library. I don't even know what the fuck I own at this point. Do I own Death Stranding? Oh, I do own it. Yup. Never played it though. Dude, I don't even know what the fuck I own at this point. This is bad. I have so many games on Steam that I've never even touched.
100 out of the many thousands on Steam. The list is growing every day as Valve continues to test. I have had a handful of crashes playing games that earned the seal of approval, but by and large, my experience has been great when playing recent games like God of War, Sekiro, Doom, and Deathloop. They all run at good, stable frame rates, and it's delightful having so much power in the palm of my hands. Games with this icon have been tested and will work, but with some caveats, like fonts that are too tiny to easily read on a 7-inch screen. Stellaris is a great example of this. Infinite gameplay possibilities, itty-bitty reading space. Everything else, well, it's a crapshoot, and the Steam Deck takes some bad beats when it comes to some hugely popular PC games that just don't work. Skyrim runs great, as long as you're not moving. GTA 5 didn't launch at all. Fortnite, Destiny 2, Lost Ark, and Halo Infinite are nixed by a lack of anti-cheat support. And there are lots more that just won't play nice by today's version of SteamOS. Will Valve ever get that sorted out? Maybe, maybe not. And it's a great big asterisk next to the promise of taking your whole Steam library with you wherever you go. I also haven't been able to get non-Steam games like Diablo 3, Call of Duty Vanguard, or Sifu working yet because, unless you're a hardcore Linux gamer, making them play nice requires a lot of time in the command line, and even then, unexpected permission errors stopped my progress just short of the finish. Hopefully it's cleared up soon, but unsurprisingly, none of them have been tested on Steam Deck. But hey, remember why this is a review in progress. All those compatibility problems are...
If they can get Lost Ark on this thing, I'm gonna be using this motherfucker, like, all the time.
a result of being limited to Steam OS for now. When Windows is up and running, all of those games should work just as they do on any PC. Time will tell. Beyond that limitation, the biggest, most deflating issue I've had has been on battery life. On default settings, God of War chewed through the whole thing in just 90 minutes, which is only 3/4 of the minimum 2 hours Valve advertised. Sure, we'll be able to tune games to pace themselves a little better than that, such as by limiting them to 30 frames per second rather than 60, but it was surprising how fast it went. Oh, also, it gave me no warning at all that the battery was about to die. It just died. The other buzzkill is that even on the high-end Steam Deck, loading times can get extreme. God of War took nearly a full minute to get me into the action, and Deathloop was 2.5 minutes from the moment I pushed play. Smaller stuff like Hades, yeah, pops up in under 10 seconds at least. The Steam Deck might be running off an SSD, but it doesn't hold a candle to a PS5 or Xbox Series X in that department. I've been spoiled.
Dude, it's 400 fucking bucks. Like, it's a little fucking handheld. They're not gonna put like some massive SSD in there that overheats. Because it's the other thing too, is the faster your SSD, the more cooling you need.
At the time of this writing, it's entirely possible to install Windows on the Steam Deck. In fact, I was kind of in love with how snappy it is compared to my aging desktop. But without the graphics driver for the custom AMD APU, I couldn't play any games. But in either Windows or Steam OS, here's something your console can't do. You can jump right out of the Steam environment and presto, you're on a full-fledged PC that can do anything you'd expect a PC to do. As of right now, on-screen keyboard functionality is spotty, so you'll probably want to use a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse. But it's interesting to contemplate that with just a few accessories, the Steam Deck could be someone's only PC, and that honestly wouldn't be a terrible setup. When you factor in all of that vast multi-use capability, the extra cost above a Switch, which to this day still has no web browser or Netflix app, doesn't seem that unreasonable. The Steam Deck is a well-built piece of hardware that feels good to hold and play on. When you're playing a Valve-approved game, it's actually incredible to get this kind of performance out of a device so relatively small and compact, even if the battery can be gone in a flash if you're not careful. But on the eve of its official launch, it isn't the smooth user experience I had hoped it would be. Aside from the frustrations I've come to expect and accept from PC gaming, the biggest problem I've encountered has been spotty compatibility with Steam OS. The dream of being able to play everything in your library on the go is a long way from being realized, and not being able to use Windows just yet makes a lot of those problems temporarily insurmountable. So it's impossible to land on a judgment right now because I literally don't know what the Steam Deck will be able to do by the time the first retail unit arrives at a paying customer's home. But that won't last for long, so check back soon for the final review and score.
God, that music is like fucking awful. Holy shit, that was loud. So Jonathan Leach with the 20, Kojima's overrated, Metal Gear sucks. Agreed. Yeah, you'll get no argument from me on that one. That's for fucking sure. But yeah, let's see. Steam Deck review. Let's watch Digital Foundry.
Steam Deck.
As long as they don't talk about sexism in fucking video games or some bullshit.
It's been a long time coming, but it's finally here, and it's quite remarkable. I mean, look at this. A handheld games machine capable of not just running the latest games, but actually running them very well indeed. The vast majority of titles we're playing here running at console equivalent settings, sometimes even better, resolution apart. I've seen a lot of Steam Deck coverage in the run-up to launch, a lot of great testing, but going hands-on, actually playing some games, seeing what this thing can do. At its best, it's a fascinating piece of remarkably performant technology, if not quite the deck of dreams that many hope it will be. There's still plenty of rough edges to smooth off. But the bottom line though, Steam Deck's performance exceeds my expectations, and literally everything you've seen in this gameplay montage is raw capture from the deck. I framed it within the Steam Deck render here so the footage isn't scaled. Whether the game runs at 720p or full native res 800p, it's a one-to-one
Yo,
pixel map.
shit, I didn't think about that. You can now play like Dark Souls 3. Yo, that's sick. I wonder if Elden Ring is running on this shit yet.
Within this 1080p video. We'll go more into performance later on, but first impressions on the machine. Well, I was sent the 512GB SSD version. Now, we know all about the form factor by now, and it's fair to say that it is larger than established handhelds like Switch, for example. You need space for a decent cooling assembly and a large battery to house this kind of performance. But you know what? I find the deck easier to use than the Switch. When strapped onto the console, Switch's Joy-Cons don't really provide good support.
Elden Ring does work on it? Yo, that's fucking sick. That's awesome.
For your entire hand, leading to pins and needles and numbness in extended play sessions. Steam Deck may be larger, much larger, but its grips really make a difference in terms of comfort, also allowing you to easily handle its weight. Analog sticks, D-pad, face buttons, an interesting merging of Xbox and Switch that works rather well, with the twin pads on either side allowing the deck to access mouse-driven games. Shoulder buttons and triggers feel great, and while it's nice to see the paddles on the rear of the machine there, I often found myself activating them by accident during the run of play. I'm not going to dwell too much more on the form factor. Overall build quality is solid, plastics are reasonable. The system consumes a lot more power relative to Switch, but the cooling is fine. The system feeling warm to the touch on the rear, but never hot. This is of little consequence to the user anyway, as the grips are kept well away from the heat. Steam Deck never feels uncomfortable to hold, and that's great. I also enjoyed the speaker quality, actually a bit of bass for once. The only issue here...
Yeah, let's see it real quick. Hold up. So Elden Ring. Steam Deck. Let's see. Yo, that looks really good. Holy shit, dude. Why isn't he locked on? Dude, this shit looks really fucking nice. I've already played some Elden Ring. I beat my first boss the other night. Dude, for a handheld though, this is like fucking crazy. Like, bro, who would think, like, in 2022, you know, we have a brand new game that just came out, like AAA open world, and this shit's running on a fucking handheld. That's crazy. I don't know. I'm very excited to get this thing. What do you guys think? Does this look a little bit better than Breath of the Wild? Valve does what Nintendo don't, bro. Simple as that. Dude, this shit looks fucking fire. I don't know. Yeah, I can look up and see if there's Cyberpunk on it real quick. Let's see. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, it is on there. I remember seeing a video on it. It may be in this, actually. And we were just watching, because apparently Cyberpunk showed up in the results. They may do a, yeah, but there is. It is running. That's what I thought. I'm pretty sure Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk both are good.
Is that often the audio quality is compromised by fan noise. Now, the fan noise isn't loud as such, but it has an intrusively high pitch. And I think it's fair to say that the screen is a bit of a disappointment. It's fine, it's adequate, but color reproduction is not outstanding. There's no variable refresh rate support that would have been really useful for this kit. And the screen itself, it's not particularly vivid, meaning it's best for indoor play. It's not super bright at all, even at max settings. Ports wise, nothing on the bottom except micro SD card access, while on the top we have volume controls, 3.5mm stereo jack for headsets, along with a USB-C for power, video out, USB expansion and the like. Valve does have a bespoke dock on the way, but any decent USB-C hub out there should do the job. Just make sure you get one with USB-C power delivery pass-through, because you're going to need it. So that's the physical form factor, and yes, I'm also only going to spend a short time talking about the UI, because fundamentally it's exactly as you would imagine it. It's Steam on a handheld. Underneath the trackpad on the left is the Steam button, which gives you easy access to Steam essentials. The home screen, your library, the store, the usual Steam stuff. On the right, a mirroring menu button gives fairly quick access to notifications, your friends list, a pared down settings options screen, and most intriguingly of all, a performance menu. Here you can specify varying levels of internal performance metrics, the ability to toggle between frame rate caps of 30 and 60 FPS, and even the ability to change the Van Gogh APU's thermal power limit, and even its GPU clock speed. The 30 FPS toggle, it's extremely useful, as we shall see, but I'd recommend leaving the other options just as they are. Now, the scaling filter here is perhaps more useful when docked, but essentially it tells the deck what you want to happen when a game is running at resolutions underneath 800p or 720p. You can upscale with a standard linear technique, a nearest neighbor algorithm, which is potentially great for retro emulators, and an integer option, which basically leaves it at native res with black borders around it. FSR, Fidelity FX Super Resolution, well, essentially you can choose the display resolution in game, and FSR then scales it up to the screen's native pixel count, and you can adjust the edge enhancement effect. It's still FSR, but somewhat different to normal in-game FSR, which should always be chosen in preference to this one in my opinion. In-game FSR usually works on the 3D content only, leaving HUD elements at native res. The system level FSR though upscales everything, which is not ideal. The interface is fine, but certainly not pared back and simple like a console would be. In truth, it couldn't be. It's a PC. There's just far too much going on, but I think Steam users will appreciate the levels of functionality on offer.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I don't think anybody's going to be bothered by the fact that this thing has all the features that Steam does. Like, everybody knows how to fucking use Steam that's buying this thing, because you had to be, like, a Steam user in order to even get this thing in the first place. So, I don't really think that's a big issue.
For here, the only real criticism of the UI beyond its density is that it can be fairly slow, and it's definitely a bit cumbersome to use. But Valve does deserve some kudos here for the suspend function, essentially allowing you to pause gameplay whenever you want and put the system into a deep sleep state. Essential for bite-sized gaming on the go. But this system does need to be expanded to include the ability to download games while the system is suspended, something that was there on day one on Nintendo Switch. As it is, if you're downloading games on the deck, it has to be fully active during the entire download time. I've spoken to Valve about this, and they do say that this is a feature that they are aggressively working on, so fingers crossed this will be added soon. So let's talk about performance, where I think it is reasonably safe to say that Steam Deck exceeds my expectations, especially considering the onerous limitations in effect here. Let's consider each of them in turn. First of all, this is an AMD APU. We have a 4-core 8-thread Zen 2 CPU cluster, and the RDNA 2 GPU occupy the same die, essentially competing for resources between them, something few, if any, developers would have catered for in their game designs. Core to those limited resources is the power input, capped at a relatively minuscule 15
Your mom
watts.
wants a Steam Deck?
Secondly,
Should get her
we
one,
have
man.
the Linux-based nature of the deck itself.
Make your
the
mom a
vast
gamer
majority
girl.
of the library are titles designed for Windows, and those need to go through the Proton compatibility layer in order to work, which must surely limit performance to some extent. To what extent it does limit performance, we don't know right now, because Windows drivers for the deck are not available during this part of the review period, and that's a bit of a shame. In analysing performance on the deck, for this segment I am benching at 720p resolution 3 ways. First of all, we have the unlocked performance of the deck itself running via the bespoke Steam UI. Now this is always running with VSync on. There's nothing you can do about that. Even if you specify turning off VSync within the game menus, it always stays on. Secondly, I rebenched the same areas with the deck's 30 FPS cap active. What we're testing for here is stability, right? For a 30 FPS mode to work effectively, you need a new frame every 33.3 milliseconds, not the uneven frame delivery we've often seen elsewhere and complained about. Finally, we do manage to get VSync off measurements with fully unlocked performance via the Linux desktop. Here, thanks to an assist from
What the fuck
Twitter
is that
user
bar
GAD,
flashing for over
we
there?
have a customized version of what is essentially the Linux equivalent to Riva Tuner statistics server, Mango HUD. The flashing border on the left there is the FCAP border markup, allowing us to easily track frame persistence with VSync off. Now, a word of caution on the desktop benchmarks. Valve tells us that only 4 CPU threads are available, potentially impacting performance when the game is CPU limited. Thankfully, the vast majority of the tests here put GPU first, with CPU issues only having a very minor impact, as we shall see. Before we go on, a word on presentation.
Like, dude, just the fact they got fucking Forza Horizon on this shit is pretty crazy.
For benchmark tests, I'm demonstrating the content tested here by showing what you might call hero background video. This is running at the same settings as what I used for the deck tests, but for the purposes of making a good looking video, it's 1080p and 60 FPS. Now over this, I'm plotting the frame rate and frame time data from the deck as it was analyzed in those 3 different ways. So let's get into it, starting with control, where I benched at enhanced console settings. Consoles are effectively PCs low with medium reflections. I've bumped these up with high level of detail, high textures and high texture filtering. You'll note immediately that we're kicking off with unlocked performance that's actually touching 60 frames per second. Via the Linux desktop or Steam UI unlocked, we average between 48 to 49 FPS at 720p across the run, which I think is absolutely remarkable as an opener. This is in no way the most complex scene in Control, but the key is we have overhead here if we choose to run the game at PS4 level 30 FPS. Aside from dips as we transition into gameplay and some flutters during a cutscene, the 30 FPS cap is essentially perfect with absolutely fine frame pacing. Now, comparing the Linux desktop with VSync off with Steam UI, which always has VSync on, you can see that frame delivery is smoother in Linux, while the deck's interface careens between 16 millisecond and 33 millisecond screen updates. Stutter versus tearing, basically, but if you're sticking with...
Bro, that shit is running really fucking well. I don't know, man. This is so cool. I really just want to get this fucking thing. X-Funding fucking with the 729 alloy behind there. Looks like a man. Lego slap my ass off. Yeah, I don't know. Especially in Forbidden West. Nick Ocado looking motherfucker. But yeah, I don't know. This is just really impressive to me. I don't know. Like, it's an exciting piece of technology that we don't really get too often. Like, it's something really just brand new for the most part.
With Steam UI, as most people likely will be, stutter it is. Now that's why I prefer 30 FPS generally in these scenarios. You're gaining consistency and indeed battery life, thanks to the low overall frame rate. Shadow of the Tomb Raider next, and a curious one because we have a rather good native Linux port here via Feral Interactive. The one caveat being that Feral tells me that running this game on Steam Deck has not been validated. Still, high settings here, one notch down from the top, and we're seeing rather good results. The entire benchmark sequence rolls out north of 30 FPS, with the unlocked Steam UI delivering 39 FPS up against 38 from the Linux desktop. Now this is likely down to the more limited CPU resources. As we move into the third segment of the bench, you can see that the cyan line is stuttering, where the unlocked deck UI doesn't seem to be losing performance. The 30 FPS mode, a few dropped frames in that final segment, but man, it's very, very consistent overall. Extremely impressive stuff, bearing in mind that we're pummeling the deck here with high settings, not the medium or low
Yo, what the fuck? I forgot about this shit.
presets.
The motherfuckers wearing these thongs and shit like that.
Typically associated with mobile PC gaming on an integrated GPU.
Yo, they just had to zoom in on the fucking ass cheeks, didn't they?
Kojima Productions' Death Stranding next, and we're running on default settings here, which by and large are a match for the PlayStation version of the game, only we're rendering at 720p versus a PS4 operating at 1080p with a capped 30 FPS. Across this short run, we're looking at a 46 to 47 FPS average on the unlocked renditions of the bench here, while aside from tiny, mostly unnoticeable blips, 30 FPS is 30 FPS, as it should be, with even frame persistence. Yeah, I mean, there are interesting comparisons to have with the last gen consoles generally, which we'll talk about later, but I'd chalk this up as another win for the deck. Now, Playground Games' Forza Horizon 5 next, and again, I'm not sparing the system some challenging content. I'm running at flat high settings here, but I've moved up motion blur to the long setting, which greatly aids fluidity in motion, especially at 30 FPS. I've also moved MSAA anti-aliasing up from high's standard 2x to 4x, because the content of the game was designed around 4x, with vegetation in particular looking a bit rough without it. In short, I'm making demands of the deck here, and this benchmark sequence is far more challenging than most of the game content. 37 FPS unlocked with Steam UI versus a faster but more unstable 39 FPS in the Linux desktop. More unstable, I guess, from the CPU overhead, but you know, still good stuff overall. Minor dropped frames at 30 FPS, but fine overall from the deck, bearing in mind
this is
how
really
challenging
fucking
this
impressive.
particular test is. Now, when I'm playing the game, it mostly plays out flawlessly with a 30 FPS cap based on my experiences. Finally, Horizon Zero Dawn. The benchmark sequence is based around Meridian, the most challenging area in the game, and we're running at 720p with original settings here, a match for PlayStation 4 then, just at a lower resolution. One thing to bear in mind with this game is that it does compile its shaders in the background as you play, and this can cause issues for a resources limited system like Steam Deck. My recommendation is to load up the game, start it and let it sit for a while before playing, otherwise you are prone to some bad stutter. Once shader compilation is sorted, it's a good showing here, 41 FPS average unlocked via the Steam UI versus 39 FPS with VSync off on the Steam desktop, again likely down to reduced CPU resources. Keep your eyes on the yellow line though. Consistent 30 FPS, consistent frame times once again from a system level frame rate cap, and this is pretty impressive stuff. All of these games run at 30 FPS on the last gen consoles. You can run them all at 30 FPS on Steam Deck with something approaching the same 33.3 millisecond per frame consistency of a console title. And look, none of these games were tested at low settings. I've given the deck both barrels and it has delivered. Horizon Zero Dawn, Forza Horizon 5. Now these games are not super fast, ultra optimal ports for the PC. They're kind of average really overall in terms of their performance levels. But
yeah, I was
point
about to
is
say,
that
the
Steam
Horizon
Deck-
port especially is pretty fucking shit, right? I think the God of War port's a lot better. It'd be interesting to see that. I don't know if they tested it or not.
is running them really, really nicely. I do want to share one word of caution though, something that the benchmarks may not pick up on. I've noticed in the past with AMD APUs that the GPU tends to get priority in terms of resources, which in gaming is how it should be. However, when the CPU is really pushed hard, it competes for those limited resources with the GPU and bad things can happen. Here's Days Gone from Sony, which is a pretty great PC port actually. Using Alex's optimized settings here, we're a touch over budget on the GPU at 800p with a console level 30 FPS target, but I'm fairly confident that with some minor tweaks, locking to 30 shouldn't be too challenging. However, pop into the challenge areas and deploy the Horde and wow, this is pretty catastrophic, right? In a desktop environment where CPU and GPU have more power and their own bespoke power budgets, and they're not competing across the same
RIP
memory
those
interface,
frames right
stuff
there
like
is
this is really
shit.
an issue. Something you need to keep in mind with the deck though. Next up, I want to emphasize the remarkable gen-on-gen leap that the RDNA 2 graphics architecture delivers compared to Vega predecessors. So, I've got an Asus Zephyrus G14 here with a Ryzen 4900HS, twice the CPU core count of the deck, but with Vega 8 graphics rather than a new RDNA2 GPU. However, it is fed by 35 watts of power as opposed to the Mega 15 in the deck. So, prepare to be seriously impressed. Despite a 2.3 times multiplier in power consumption allotted to Ryzen 4000, here in Tomb Raider across the entire benchmark, the Steam Deck GPU has a 56.5% increase in performance against the Vega equivalent. As you can see, its performance profile kind of sits it in the middle between the deck operating at 720p and 1080p. This is Windows versus native Linux, remember. You may see a bit more stutter on the deck. Remember that our VSync off measurements are taken with less CPU.
Yo, why can't they put Laura in one of those like fucking thong things or whatever? I'd revisit Tomb Raider for sure.
Power available compared to the Steam UI. And yes, obviously the Ryzen on the laptop has far more CPU power. However, looking at control...
Bro, they really just had to zoom in on those ass cheeks. Like, what the fuck, man?
On the laptop...
they just had to fucking do it.
Has far more CPU power. However, looking at control next, there's a very similar grouping, right? In like-for-like settings at 720p, the Steam Deck's delivering a 51% performance advantage over Vega across the duration of the benchmark, despite the huge power differential, and that's despite the Proton wrapper interpreting the Windows game within Linux. And finally, we're going back to Death Stranding again. We've got Proton in effect here, with what you would assume has some kind of performance overhead. However, like for like, the Van Gogh processor outperforms Ryzen 4900 HS here by 61.5%. In fact, amusingly, Steam Deck at 1080p has 83% of the older Ryzen chip's performance at 720p, which is kind of nuts. Now, this Ryzen is a couple of years old now, but still, this is a huge improvement. And you can only wonder what the new range of Ryzen 6000 notebook GPUs will deliver if they have the Deck's graphics tech paired with much higher power budgets. Now let's get a little more ambitious with our benchmark tests. I've talked a lot about base PlayStation 4 comparisons, and this got me thinking, is it possible to get some sense of proportion between the two systems, PS4 versus Deck? To do this properly, we'd need a top-end PS4 game that pushed the state of the art, but one which also has an unlocked frame rate, and of course it also needs to have a good PC port. Enter Santa Monica Studios' God of War, where its Gold Master version, forever immortalized on Blu-ray disc, does have an unlocked frame rate. The developers also handed in a great PC port that runs like a champ on the Steam Deck, so let's take a look. PS4 1080p versus Deck at 720p and native 800p, unlocked with matched content at the same quality settings. Across this clip, it's a 32.1 FPS average on PlayStation 4, up against 34.6 FPS at 800p on the Deck and 36.6 FPS at 720p. So the evidence here is suggesting that despite having no low-level access to the processor, despite not really having a unified memory setup, and despite having to go through the Proton compatibility layer, the Deck at its native resolutions can run a top-tier PS4 game with the same settings and even a small bump to performance overall, which is...
That's pretty fucking impressive, dude. So you're getting basically PS4 level performance on a fucking handheld. That's wild.
You know, really interesting stuff, right? There's something else interesting about the 720p versus 800p resolution differential there. Essentially, performance increases by around 6 to 7% by dropping from 800p to 720p. Of course...
Yeah, God of War Ragnarok is a DLC. Like, it was supposed to be a DLC at first, but they were like, it's long enough to be its own game. So that's the only reason why it's a standalone title. It was going to be like Miles Morales, basically, to the original Spider-Man kind of setup.
There are 40 pixel borders, top and bottom, but this is an interesting way to increase performance if you're just at the cusp of your frame rate limit. What about 1080p versus 1080p though? Kind of academic, and it can only be done via the Linux desktop, but here's a PS4 versus 720p versus 1080p 3-way. Yeah, the deck's APU obviously has its limits. You're getting about 63% of the PS4's performance here when resolutions are matched. So God of War was patched with a 30 FPS cap, and a good one. So how does the Steam Deck compete? Well, first of all, I found that in-game frame rate caps on the deck only work if VSync is off and frame delivery is bad. However, Valve's system-level implementation is generally excellent. In God of War, I don't think anybody would really be able to tell the difference. Look at those flat frame times. Slight wobbles under load, but it's crucial for the deck to get 30 FPS right. It's not quite the final finished article, but it's almost there, and that's great. This is crucial for the system. Finally, out of curiosity, I also ran one final round of benchmarks, maxing out 3 games and then plugging in the results from Steam Deck into our existing GPU database in order to answer one question. Is there a desktop graphics card equivalent to Steam Deck GPU performance? This is a nuts comparison fraught with bad ideas, bearing in mind the power differential, the OS difference, Proton and whatnot, but amusing and kind of interesting nonetheless. Here in Death Stranding, the closest desktop GPU to the deck in our database was the 4GB version of the Radeon RX 460, which is also the Radeon RX 560, funnily enough. The desktop card's about 12% quicker here. You may wonder what the GTX 1050 Ti is doing here. Well, a lot of folks use the 1050 Ti with 1080p screens, and the deck is actually giving fairly similar performance at the same settings at 720p, the resolution you'd likely use on the deck. This one's quite interesting. Doom Eternal again sees the RX 460 about 12% faster than Steam Deck, but we had to bust down texture detail from Ultra Nightmare to medium to get it running.
Yo, I wish somebody would do a comparison video of Doom Eternal on the Switch versus the Steam Deck. Hold up, I'm gonna check if that's the thing. That shit would be funny. Fuck, nobody has it. Damn. I wish... Yeah, that would be fucking funny. Or Witcher 3 on Switch versus Steam Deck. I would love to see the difference on that shit.
Steam Deck's running this fully flat out with Ultra Nightmare settings across the board. Again, Steam Deck at 720p outperforms 1050 Ti at 1080p, and the Nvidia card's got some weird frame time issues here. Now, you might be wondering how we managed to get Ultra Nightmare textures running on Steam Deck. The system actually allocates 9 gigs of memory to GPU frame buffer memory, but that seems to be an outlier. For most games, it's actually 6 gigabytes, but that's more than enough for 720p or 800p gaming. So next up, let's move on. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, highest settings. On the Steam Deck side here, remember that we have access to a native Linux version, and yeah, a bit more of a gap between RX 460 and Steam Deck here, but again, the handheld at 720p up against the GTX 1050 Ti at 1080p sees slightly higher performance from the Steam machine. Interesting stuff, right? Okay, so this is all a bit of minor silliness really, but it highlights the kind of ballpark level of performance you have, and then the accelerant you get from not having to run games at the standard 1080p. Okay, so the crucial thing here is going to be the price for this performance, right? And I'm not talking about MSRPs or whatever, because the deck is ridiculously good value for the hardware you're getting. The price here is battery life. Now, I could regale you with tests on various games, but I honestly think they're a bit pointless. You're in control of the game settings, you're in control of the target frame rate, you're in control of the resolution, and all of these things can impact the battery life. What you're not in control of is game content, which also changes rapidly and can also impact battery life for good or bad at any given moment. All I can really say is this: the maximum I've seen the Steam Deck draw from the battery is in the region of 27 watts. Now, bearing in mind that 15 watts of that budget is taken up by the processor, the rest is going to be the board, the memory, the storage, the screen, the sound, the Wi-Fi. There's a ton going on here and it all demands power. And well, Steam Deck only has a 40 watt-hour battery. So assuming that 27 watts is the maximum, 40 divided by 27 is 1.48, meaning that if you run games flat out, you'll get about an hour and a half of battery life, which isn't great. However, lower settings, lower resolution, use the 30 FPS cap, and the load on the battery reduces and battery life increases. Valve does give you quite an impressive performance metrics overlay, which does the maths for you. So yes, you would be looking at 1.5.
Yo, he said the thing, bro. He said the maths.
Overlay, which does the maths for you.
Or no, he doesn't say maths. He says mats. Like, what the fuck? The way British people say math is just very fucking funny.
Does give you quite an impressive performance metrics overlay, which does the maths for you. So yes, you would be looking at 1.5 to 2 hours for something like God of War at PS4 equivalent settings at native resolution. And that really taxes the system. But you know, on the flip side, even with a screen at max brightness, Cuphead gives well over 6 hours of battery life. So thus far, the outlook is pretty incredible for this piece of kit. I mean, starting at $400 for a machine that monsters any other handheld, holds its own against any kind of integrated graphics, pretty amazing. But there are issues. Some games may have glitches, minor or otherwise. God of War here has minor graphical problems, but seems okay. However, Red Dead Redemption 2 randomly crashed in my testing. Nex Machina and The Witcher 2, well, they froze after loading. Forza Horizon 5 started out running really badly at the beginning of the review process, but Proton improved and now it's awesome. So I've been talking a lot about the latest and greatest games here, but this is a great chance also to revisit older titles in your Steam library, which should run as smooth as butter, and you know, by and large I guess they do. That said, I did find that titles like Enslaved and Sonic Generations here could still stutter quite badly. Is it down to the games? Is it down to Proton? You can't help but wonder whether Valve couldn't have just built this thing around Windows to bypass these issues, or to improve them, or to get much better compatibility. We can't judge Windows performance right now owing to the lack of driver, but if you do go down that route, you'll be unlikely to see all of the system level loveliness, the proper 30 FPS cap, or the kind of cool hot swapping you can do with the SD cards. Yes, they are, just plug and play, and it's cool. So one final takeaway. It looks like a console, but it's not a console. Right now, at least, there's not much in the way of curation for the deck, and getting stuff to run well is often down to the user to sort out. Balancing...
I mean, that's literally the PC experience, though, so it's kind of what everybody wants from this thing in the first place. So King of Weebs with the 2, watch Austin Evans Steam Deck versus Switch OLED. Oh, does that have like comparisons shit? Yeah, we can check it out.
Settings, figuring out battery life on any given game, that's all on you. Coming to the deck after, say, using a Nintendo Switch, you realize how much developers and platform holders look after you in getting the most out of a resource-constrained piece of hardware. Steam Deck, on the other hand, gives you freedom, but it may take you some time to figure out, well, what you're doing, and on a game-by-game basis, no less. Still, it is an exciting piece of technology for sure, and it's rare that something exceeds my expectations by this wide a margin, and I'm sure it's going to be wildly successful. But yes, we'll have more Steam Deck content.
Fuck is this
soon,
gameplay,
but
dude?
Here and now, thanks for making it all the way to the end of this one, if indeed you did, and just generally, thanks for watching and supporting Digital Foundry. Oh, one more thing, DF Supporter Program. Join us. There's going to be a bunch of...
Yeah, no thanks.
At this point, you've already seen
God, this dude's voice pisses me off.
the Nintendo Switch OLED, but what I really want to talk about is the Valve Steam Deck, which really is the stream...
Like, bro, this dude's rich as fuck. Just get LASIK, bro. Like, honest, I don't know. I hate these round-ass looking glasses and shit.
No, Steam, not Stream. The Steam Deck...
How fucking funny, dude.
Which really is the Nintendo Switch Pro that we were all waiting for. And actually even more, in a way. Now that we're past the initial rush of the announcement, I think it is incredibly interesting that Valve has chosen now
How
of
old
all
is
time.
this? Yeah, this is like 7 months old. I don't even think this is like worth watching. Unless there's like direct comparisons, but seems like it's way too old. Yeah, that's old. Is there even like anything in here? Yeah, it's too old. There's nothing to watch. It's all outdated shit anyway, probably. So let's see. There was one other video I did want to watch. From Review Tech, the Gabe Newell thinks the Steam Deck will be the iPhone of gaming PCs. Which, I don't know what the fuck that means, but yeah.
You know something? I think it's time for Pat the NES punk to relax his anus. Time to relax your 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 anus, Patrick. Ian 2.
Skip it up and that up. So the Valve Steam Deck has officially been released into the wild as of February 25th, 2022. In case you didn't know the date, I have Birds. Nice to meet you. Review Tech USA. This is a channel with men. You should subscribe. Hit the subscribe button below in the description, or the red button. It's not in the description. Also hit the bell to get notifications for all of my newest uploads, when there is newest uploads, when YouTube feels like sending you notifications, even when you hit the bell. Thanks, YouTube, for send out notifications, YouTube. Please. Just do it. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Well, anyway, the Steam Deck is a console that's been released. I've had one on pre-order since day one. I have still not gotten the email to finish my reserve and pay for the rest of it. Gabe, I want my Steam Deck. Please. I want to do things with it. Play games in bed where I don't need to have clothes on and all my holes are free. My holes cannot be free now, Gabe, until you send me out my portable gaming PC, so make it happen. Well, anyway, according to Mr. Newell, the man we know as Gabe N, he feels that the Steam Deck may do for the PC gaming industry what the iPhone did for the mobile phone industry. That's an interesting take. Anyway, this is what he said to IGN. I'll read it to you, then we'll discuss. I think that every gamer has wanted this for a really long time, right? I mean, anytime you start playing PC games, about a month after you do it, you say, where's my mobile version of this, right? I mean, projects that try and do this go back all the way to the 90s. So what's really different this time is that we finally reached the point where you have the performance per watt that really lets you do this. There's software and input challenges you have to solve, but it's like one of those things. There was before and after the iPhone, right? Up until then, you'd use a BlackBerry for these very application-specific things, but in terms of a general mobile computing experience, that was the transition point. Right now, we've reached a point where you have a mobile gaming device that can pretty much do anything, and it only gets better from here on out for PC gamers. And like the IGN article says, and they make a really good point, like, say the Steam Deck is the iPhone of these portable gaming PC devices, okay? There was, with the iPhone, there was devices that predated it that were smartphones. They were considered smartphones that were the BlackBerry 850 and the Handspring Trio, all right? And there was also the Motorola Q. I actually remember a friend having that. And then everything after...
Review Tech USA and DSP would be best friends IRL. Probably, honestly. I don't know, man. I have no clue. Griffin not even trying anymore? That's right, man. I'm like a female living on recruit difficulty, right?
Then there was everything after the iPhone. It revolutionized the smartphone industry. yeah, I could kind of like, I've used the Aya Neo. I've used the Aya Neo Next. I've used 1X player devices. And yeah, they're Switch-like gaming PCs, but they use sometimes Intel integrated graphics, which are very limited in terms of driver support. And they're just using Windows. It's not a streamlined experience. It's clunky, kind of like smartphone computing was on the Motorola Q or the Handspring Trio or the Blackberries back in the day. And then the iPhone came out and changed everything. Maybe the Steam Deck will do that. Maybe it'll balance a way where you're still getting a PC gaming experience in a device like this, okay? And it's streamlined to make the experience, you still have a powerful gaming experience on the go, but it's easier to use instead of having to clumsily tap through Windows or have some, like Aya Neo has their software where it's like a skin on top of Windows, and it's not really a good solution. And if you have the right software and the right hardware, like the iPhone did back in 2007 when it changed the entire smartphone industry.
I don't know if I would say this is going to be like I think Gabe is kind of overhyping that a little bit. I mean, maybe this turns into a huge market, but I don't know. Do y'all, like, honestly, put the I mean, it's not even like fanboy shit. Like, do you guys actually think the Steam Deck could become, like, super fucking popular? I don't know if it will, to be honest. Like, I think it'll be, like, a good selling product, but I don't know if it's going to be, like, huge, if that makes sense. I could see it selling, like, maybe 10 million devices, maybe. But past that, I don't fucking know. I don't see it as being, like, super fucking mainstream. It's kind of a niche device. I mean, maybe over in Asia, it might do extremely well. Like, I think if they release this shit over in Japan, maybe in China, it could maybe blow the fuck up. But I don't know about the Western market, to be honest. In Japan, I could 100% see this thing doing insanely fucking well. Like, the Japanese love the Switch. And for them to be able to play games like Final Fantasy XIV, you know, JRPGs and shit that aren't on the Switch in a better graphical fidelity, in the same kind of form factor, that to me would be like the biggest market. The Japanese market for sure. So I could definitely see it like blowing up over there. And maybe it does well in the US. I don't know. It's just, it's not widely enough available yet. Like, there's not enough of them out there. But I guess they're probably testing the market first, seeing how people like them with the pre-order units, and then after that they may ramp up production. I have no fucking clue, but overall, I think it's going to be a cool little niche device. I don't know if it's going to be like super fucking mainstream.
Maybe Valve.
Japanese don't support US products. That's major cap, because I'm pretty sure iPhone is the majority market share phone in Japan. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Japanese cell phone market share. I'm pretty sure that Apple has a pretty fucking big market share. It's either, I'm trying to find it. I know like, let's be honest here. Nobody in Japan's buying a fucking Sony phone. They're either buying Samsung or Apple. Let me see if I can find the stats real quick. Like, that's the thing, bro. It's the Japanese buy foreign products. They don't just buy Japanese stuff. Especially if the Japanese stuff isn't on the same, like, par. So let's see. I don't know how. Can I get a list? Tried to find it, but I'm pretty sure Apple has a pretty big market share. So yeah, Apple was Japan's largest smartphone brand in 2020 with a 47.3% market share. Yeah. So Apple is the number one. In Japan. There you go. So a US company did well in Japan. There we fucking go.
Does have a point, and the Steam Deck will be the iPhone of mobile gaming PCs. Only time will tell. I hear that the Steam Deck is really good, but rough around the edges. But
I've already had the stem player, bro. I got it right here. Let's see. Shit, is it charged? Let's see. Yeah, I have the stem player. I had it when it came out. Like, I pre-ordered it immediately. So, yeah, I have one. I do. Box someone to watch Darman. We can watch it, fine.
I'm sure Valve will fix those rough corners with the next generation Steam Deck, which I hear they're already working on. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I know iPhone's like the majority market share in the US, but I still got to rep the Samsung. Oh, it's one of these videos.
Hey, Bam, I'm super.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do this, man. We'll see. These type of videos kind of piss me off.
Man. I'm super not excited for you guys to watch today's video. Also because it's another collab with Darman. And to celebrate this collab, we're actually gonna not be giving our subscribers a PlayStation 5 because it's our PlayStation 5. And Darman. If you guys want to win one, all you have to do is subscribe to only my channel. All right, we hope you guys love it.
Did you see Sniper Wolf stream yesterday with Sniper Wolf? It was so yeah. We watched you last night.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I can't believe no one got I told you it was gonna be Sam. Her name's Psychomancer. And what is that name anyway? Oh my gosh, is that the new Darman Studio?
Yeah, I think I'm good, man. This is not for me. So U generation with the 2, no Willie Mac, bullying, quartering, sad. I mean, we can possibly do that probably tomorrow, not tonight. I'm probably gonna go ahead and hop off for tonight. It is 4:13 for me, so I think I'm gonna go to sleep, guys. So appreciate everybody for coming out. I guess I will be live again tomorrow. So have a good one. Sleep well. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.